All right, so our mini unit is on the patterns of these stars, sun, and moon. I'm Danica. We have Tiffany, Alicia, and Christina.
So our entire unit revolves around the first grade level. We have a couple of Common Core standards that we go over. So the first one is the big overarching standard of science that relates to the sun, moon, and stars and their patterns in outer space and in the sky. And then we do have a visual arts standard that relates to the art that will be found throughout the unit. And then we do have an English language arts standard that relates to the literacy for a book that is covered in the unit as well. And then we do have some ISTE standards. So these standards are related to how technology is going to empower our students to go out and look for this information and help them use it to support what they're learning and creating anything through any digital devices or just anything that they're going to be using that's integrated into the lesson.
So some of the high-impact educational practices that you'll be seeing throughout our mini unit is knowledge of the human cultures and the physical and natural world, specifically science. And we'll also be using the intellectual and practical skills such as critical and creative thinking, oral communication, teamwork, inquiry and analysis, written and oral communication, and informational literacy.
So throughout the mini unit, our lesson plans will incorporate various forms of technology like YouTube videos, simulations, Adobe Spark presentations, search engines, and various apps in order to learn about the patterns of the moon, sun, and the stars.
So the first lesson of the unit is going to talk about the sun. It starts with a fun video by Storybots, and they describe a bunch of characteristics about the sun. Then we'll break off into the class and we'll talk about some more characteristics. And then the students will work on Adobe Spark, and each student will create their own slide. It's like a presentation, and they're going to create their own slide and talk about one characteristic that they learned about. And then at the end of the day, when the kids go home, they're going to use the app called Star Walk Kids, and they're going to continue their journey learning about the sun.
The second day of the unit will be centered on stars. By the end of the lesson, students are going to be able to describe characteristics of the stars and recognize constellations. Students will participate in a KWL chart throughout the lesson. First, an introductory video is going to be played on YouTube. The video is going to tell the students more about stars and explain constellations to prepare them for the next activity. Students will then be assigned a constellation. They will individually use the Google search engine in order to find a picture of their assigned constellation, and then the students will do an art project centered on this constellation. They're going to use Play-Doh and toothpicks in order to create the constellation that they are assigned. And the learning doesn't stop there. Once the students are home, they're going to use an app called Skyview with their guardians to locate constellations in the sky.
On day 3, the students will be learning about the moon phases. To start the lesson, the students will be shown a video that helps explain the significance of the moon and how it has many phases. The students will then take an image or look at the images of the moon phases and use Oreos to create the moon phases, and as they complete each one, they place it on the worksheet to keep track of the many phases of the moon that occur around us. By keeping the activity hands-on, it would allow students to retain the knowledge of the moon better.
So in the final day of the entire unit, they're going to be learning about the sun, moon, and stars and the overall patterns of movement that they see in the sky and in the solar system. So the beginning of the lesson will start with the book, Hello, Sun, Moon, and Stars, and it's more of a creative take on how the sun, moon, stars, and Earth are all interacting in outer space. And then it will go into the movement and art activity of the lesson plan, where students will each be representing a specific part of the sun, moon, stars, and Earth in outer space, and then they will be in groups and they'll be rotating around each other in the proper orbit that they would find in space. Then the next component would be the PBS simulation. So this is an online website that students can use to see how exactly the sun and the moon are rising and setting in the sky. And then at the very, very end, they will engage in a really fun video where they can get up, sing, and dance. And it's all about a song that's all about the patterns that they see in the sky with the sun and the moon.
So the mini unit is significant because of the variety of technology that students are exposed to. So with so many activities and a wide exposure of different forms of technology, students and teachers will both be highly engaged and interested throughout the whole unit. And the mini unit will make a difference in the students' lives because they'll be able to connect abstract concepts to real life. For example, students will act out the movements and the patterns of the sun, moon, and stars, so they'll be able to turn those abstract concepts into something they can relate to.
So there are many ways that we could bring this mini unit to online. We could do it through Zoom, like we've been doing this semester, through Google Classroom, Google Slides. For example, in the lesson plan that I created, we used Adobe Spark that could be used virtually. Also, for an example, in the STARS lesson plan, they used toothpicks and Play-Doh. If this had to be done at home, you could use materials from at home, like straws and marshmallows or spaghetti or pretzels and grapes. You could get creative with it. There's many different things that we could do to adapt to online learning or online teaching.
So for the group contributions, Danica worked on the sun lesson plan, Christina worked on the stars lesson plan, I worked on the moon phases lesson plan, and Alicia worked on the overall patterns and movement of the lesson plan. As a whole group, we each assisted each other in making connections of the high impact educational practices, the ISTE standards, and integration of technology throughout the mini unit.
Thank you for watching our presentation, and we hope that you were able to learn some new things that maybe you can apply to your future classroom or integrate into any of your future lesson plans.